Thingkho Le Malcha by KSO Media and Documentation Cell. Issue number 77. Monday, 27 November 2023. Headlines. KO2 temporarily suspends economic blockade. Kuki students in Kerala highlight grievances at Kannur Literary Fest. Myanmar. Thanan Army camp along with two major camps of UNLEF, PLA overran, busted in Upper TMU district. 20 students under the aegis of KSGHQ head towards South India for studies. School burnt down in Manipur violence. Kukizo owners seek compensation from state. Move SC. Manipur government's alarming alliance. Shielding UNLEF extremists undermines democracy and national security. Why were we shunned? Kukizo mob students on being debarred from exams. Thingkho Le Malcha. Relief Center update. St. Paul's Institute Relief Center. Gauching Kupvang, New Lamka. Managed by Tsai GHQ Relief Committee. Total inmates registered, 150. Male, 70. Female, 80. Kuki victims update AS on November 25, 2023. Deaths, 153. Villages burnt, 200 plus. Houses burnt, 7,000 plus. Churches and synagogues burnt, 360. Displaced persons, 41,425. KO2 temporarily suspends economic blockade. The Committee on Tribal Unity temporarily suspended the economic blockade on November 27 in selected areas of Kukizo, citing hardships faced by the people. The committee via a press note mentioned that reviewing the current suspension, it may be forced to enforce the blockade if required. In accordance with the necessity that may arise out of the current dynamics, it will review the current suspension and enforce if required. The committee also appreciate the support given by the public during the entire course of the blockade, stated the press note. The Committee on Tribal Unity Sadar Hills Kangpokpi's indefinite economic blockade had kicked off in Manipur. On November 21, vehemently condemning the alleged indifferent attitude of the concerned authority in dispensing law and order in Kukizo inhabited areas. KOTU had decided to impose an indefinite economic blockade along National Highway 2 and 37. Kuki students in Kerala highlight grievances at Kannur Literary Fest. The displaced Kuki students of Manipur, now pursuing their careers at Kannur University, Kerala, on Monday highlighted the grievances faced by the Kuki students in the aftermath of the Manipur violence during a literary festival at the varsity. The session was moderated by Jack C. Thomas, wherein a number of Kuki students from the university presented their first-hand accounts of the Manipur violence, causes, violence on civilians, students, and role of Métis radical groups in the ongoing ethnic pogrom. The students shared their personal life experiences in the Impole Valley in the initial stage of the violence. The Kuki students were represented by Thangmanlin, Catherine Thwamaganam, Gigan Haokip, and Kim Shirley Nikum. The session also has a deliberate discussion on central and state government stands, way forward on how and when the violence will end. All the questions raised during the discussion were taken care of with the best knowledge from the delegates representing the Kuki students. Earlier in the day, the Kuki students led by KSO Kerala Education Secretary Galungman Haokip also meet CPI-M leaders and raised the grim situation of Kuki students in Manipur. Kannur University was the first institution that came forward to offer an opportunity for Kuki students to continue their studies. So far, 120 Kuki students have reached Kerala. Of them, 34 students have been accommodated in various colleges and departments under the Kannur University. Myanmar. Thanan Army camp along with two major camps of UNLEF, PLA overran, busted in Upper TMU district. An army camp of the notorious Myanmar military junta in the Nan along with a couple of major hideouts that belong to pro-junta UNLEF and PLA, proscribed Mayday militant groups based in Myanmar, had been simultaneously overran and busted on November 22nd and 23rd consecutively by a combined force of the pro-democratic groups comprising of KNAB and the People's Defense Force (PDF) in the Upper Saguing region of Myanmar. In a statement released on Sunday, the Kuki National Army, Burma, KNAB, said, during the course of the operation, the pro-democratic KNAB and its coalition PDF groups, which have been functioning under the aegis of Myanmar National Unity Government (NUG), were able to successfully take over and grab hold of the Nan concentration camp that has long been infamously known for sadism and gross human rights violations upon its inmates. Numerous arms and ammunition of about 3 truckloads were recovered during the clinical raid collaboratively executed by the Democratic Alliance Force of KNAB and PDF. Statement pertaining to this political development had also been published on November 22nd, with a view to provide timely information to the general public in a transparent manner. The raid that led to a fierce gunfight lasted for several hours from the wee hours of 3 a.m. till 9 p.m. in the night, in which the Nan concentration camp was aptly busted and captured thereafter. Notably, a large number of badges and ammunitions that contained the inscription of the pro-military SNA terrorist group operating in the region as PSA. Soldiers for the Myanmar military junta had also been duly recovered from the skirmishes, it said. Subsequently, KNAB said, another round of significant showdown began on November 23 when the pro-Democratic Myanmar Alliance Force of KNAB and the PDF guerrillas jointly launched a strategic and tactical offensive operation to uproot the two major hideouts of valley-based insurgent groups, BIGs, of Manipur along the Nan Thongha adjoining areas and Upper Sagaing Division, thereby inflicting heavy casualties upon the UNLF and PLA BIGs that have long been working against the interest of the Myanmar general public by covertly operating in cahoots with the Myanmar military junta treacherously with sinister designs and malicious intention. It was learned that those camps in the Upper Sagaing Division were established after merging a classified political agreement between the valley-based insurgent groups, BIGs, and the Myanmar military junta way back in the early part of the year in 2020. Since then, the BIGs like the UNLF and PLA from Manipur, predominantly belonging to the Mayday populace, began to operate in Upper Sagaing Division of Burma to carry out subversive activities against the pro-democracy Myanmar civilians at large by assisting the junta in its inhumane crackdowns perpetrated upon the peaceful pro-democracy protesters. The Information and Publicity Secretary, Francis Kuki, said the aforesaid camps of the BIGs captured was approximately just around 3 kilometers, 2 miles, away from the Nan village. While it's been found that the injured Myanmar military junta soldiers who fled away from the skirmishes took shelter and refuge in and around the vicinity of the Nan using villagers as human shield, the whereabouts of the fleeing UNLF and PLA cadres have not yet been ascertained till date. It has also been learned that the warring Myanmar military junta could only airdrop relief supplies and materials such as food, grains, and drinks for its soldiers by using its Air Force units in Myafit town near the Nan village on November 23. As the land route purportedly considered to be the best option for transporting logistic supplies have already been systematically blocked and cut off by the coalition of KNAB and PDF troops that have been working together cooperatively under Myanmar Democratic Alliance Force of the National Unity Government. Francis also said that even though the Myanmar military junta launched the precision airstrikes for at least 3 times on November 24, there had not a single casualty or injury from KNAB and PDF troops. It is highly mentionable that the Myanmar military junta, enjoying aerial warfare advantage over the pro-democratic revolutionary fighters, dropped tons of bombs on the 3 Kuki ethnic villages of the region: Visphalen village, the Nan village, and Thingkho village on November 24, compelling all the innocent villagers, including children and women, to flee into the nearby woods for safety, with exception of Phalen villagers who fled to the adjacent Indian village called Haokip for taking refuge and in shelter for their survival and safety. 20 students under the aegis of KSGHQ head towards South India for studies. The Kuki Students Organization, the apex student body of the Kukis, has consistently been at the forefront of education, exploring avenues for continuation of studies for displaced students. The organization commitment to responsible management of displaced students, sustainable growth, and innovative learning is the core theme. As a testament to its commitment to academic prospect, the KSGHQ Education Department today facilitated 20 Kuki students to pursue BA/BSc/B.Com studies in South India. The students were guided by Hoikim and Kamuanlal, Assistant Education Secretaries from KSO Sadar Hills and Chirachandpur offices, respectively. Since the outbreak of violence on May 3, the KSGHQ has been dedicated to supporting displaced students, and to date, they have successfully sent over 200 students for their studies. This marks the final student assistance activity for this year, said Haokip, Education Secretary of the KSGHQ. He said the KSO will provide further updates if the organization continues in the near future. The organization also expressed gratitude to all the donors for generous contribution in making the effort a successful one. KSGHQ remains committed to addressing the concerns of our students. We encourage every student to reach out to their respective district education department within KSO for any assistance, Tanghwa added. School burnt down in Manipur violence. Kukizo owners seek compensation from state, Move SC. A Kukizo family, who ran a school for 25 years in Impol until it was burnt down during the ethnic violence in Manipur in May this year, has approached the Supreme Court demanding compensation from the state for failing to protect the institution and its infrastructure. Permanently displaced, the family say they have been forced to abandon the school and live on the generosity of distant family relatives at Chirachandpur, Manipur. And since parts of Impol continue to be in the throes of violence, The atmosphere is no longer conducive for members of the Kukizo communities to rebuild their lives there anytime soon, the family claimed in its petition to the Supreme Court. Unsure about whether they can run the school ever again. The family wants the court to direct the Manipur government to compensate for the loss it suffered due to the damage caused to the institution and its failure to launch any investigation to arrest the perpetrators. The petition came up for hearing on November 24 before a bench led by Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, which asked the petitioner's lawyer Sai Vinod to provide a copy of the petition to the Apex Court-appointed committee, which is looking into rehabilitation schemes floated by the state government. We have something in mind. Please give a copy of the petition to the committee, the CJI told advocate Sai Vinod, who appeared on behalf of the family. The petition, filed by Nyangthiambin, one of the owners of St. Peter's School in Impole, contains extensive details of how the school was attacked, followed by a hostage situation wherein 39 persons who took refuge in the school premises at the time of clashes were taken hostage. Horrors of the carnage, the school, claimed the petitioners, was gearing up to celebrate its Silver Jubilee this year when a group of Meitei allegedly vandalized it. On May 4th, the school, its buildings, its legacy, and its mission were burnt, destroyed, and forever lost, the petition laments. A day before, on May 3rd, the petition said, some families rushed to the school for safety when a violent mob began attacking churches, homes, and other establishments of Kukizo tribals in Zone 4 of National Games Village, NGV, in Impole West. They hoped that the school would be spared by the armed men. By midnight, about 34 people were inside the school premises. To make matters worse, electricity to the school and nearby areas was cut off, they allege. The next day, on May 4th, a mob gathered outside the school gate and began pelting stones and attempted to trespass. Nyangthiambin's mother-in-law, founder and principal of the school, urged the mob to leave, given the number of women and children sheltering inside the structure. However, according to the petition, the mob forced itself inside the premises and burnt classrooms, offices, hostels, and residences. The school's football turf was also set ablaze. The mob then turned to those who were hiding inside the school and checked their Aadhaar cards. 2 Thingkho Naga families who too had taken shelter inside the building were allowed to leave safely, while the remaining 25, 12 women and 9 children, were taken hostage, including the petitioner and her 2 minor sons. Later, they were made to walk towards an unspecified 6th location. In the process, they crossed a police booth that was located 30 meters from the school gate and yet received no help from the police personnel who were present there. The petition alleges. 8 hours after they were taken into custody, the 25 were thrown inside a police truck and taken to the 1st Manipur Rifles camp, which according to the petition, was a few kilometers away. Finally, on May 8th, escorted by the army, Nyangthiambin and her 2 sons flew to Guwahati safely, while her ma Theron, Law, who stayed back, was sent to Charachanpur. The loss and trauma caused to the petitioner and her family is incalculable. St. Peter's School was established in 1999 by the petitioner's mother-in-law and her late husband and has a long-standing legacy of providing education to children from all communities, including Kukizo, Meitei and Nagas without any discrimination, read the petition. Although the family is yet to assess the full extent of loss, they have provided to the court a rough estimate, according to which they have lost movable and immovable properties worth 14 rupees crore. This includes the loans and personal borrowings by the family to improve the school's infrastructure, construction of a new library, and a recreational room. Having experienced the horrors of the carnage, the family has also demanded compensation for mental trauma caused as a result. The police did nothing as the angry mobs paraded and took them as hostages. They acted in collusion with the mobs, let alone their serious dereliction of constitutional and official duties, the petition submits. Source: The Print. Manipur government's alarming alliance, shielding UNLF extremists undermines democracy and national security. Just when the UNLF camp located in Upper TMU Township in Myanmar, approximately 4 km from more was raided and captured by a joint force of the Kuki National Army Burma, KNAB, and People's Defense Force, PDF. On 22nd and November 23rd, N. Biren Singh, chief agent of violence in Manipur, miraculously decided to initiate peace talks with the oldest VBG, the UNLF. And on the 25th of November, a new UNLF camp was inaugurated in Kukshin Kana area. The timing couldn't have been more impeccable. This is a clear sign of Manipur government sheltering and shielding a banned extremist group under UPA who is also averse to pro-democratic values, values which the Constitution of India seeks to defend, protect, and propagate. To add to the woe, N. Biren Singh decided to shield these undemocratic and anti-national elements on the very day our constitution came into force. N. Biren Singh is blinded by his hate for the Kukis and his unrelenting stubbornness to hold his political power dearly. How long will the Union government and right-minded Indians tolerate such unconstitutional actions? Even after publishing the Constitution in their own local language, the Métis, and in particular Biren Singh, are unable to understand the values enshrined in the Constitution. The UNLF have committed many atrocities against our security forces by ambushing, killing, and bomb blasts. Manipur government sheltering them in the sovereign land of India means effectively challenging the sovereignty of India. Here are some of the atrocities committed by UNLF against Kukis: mass rape and molestation. The UNLF committed crime against humanity and against citizens of India when they raped many women, including minors, and killed many men from the Kukizo ethnic tribes. This happened in 2006 when at least 25 women belonging to the Mar tribe were raped and molested by cadres of the UNLF and the KCP. On 6th of January, 10 girls, some of them minors, were raped/molested and several villagers assaulted in Parbung village in the Tipamuk subdivision, located in the southern part of the district. One boy, whose 2 sisters were sexually assaulted, was shot dead the same night. 10 days later, on the night of January 16th, about 18 armed militants assaulted about 402 villagers of Lungthoyan. They went on to molest and rape 15 girls and women aged between 12 and 27. The villagers were so terrified that early in the morning of January 17th, many of them fled to neighboring Mizoram. 650 people were accommodated in camps set up by the Mizoram government at Sakardai. Planting of anti-personnel landmines and improvised explosive devices, IEDs, to deter the movement of the SFs in areas like Singangut, Denlon, Hanglep, and Tipamuk subdivisions. Due to this, several Kuki civilians have been killed or maimed in landmine/IED explosions. Official data for the state indicates that 3 persons were killed and 30 were injured in 37 IED/mine blasts in 2004. The situation worsened in 2005 with 26 persons killed and 75 injured in 66 blasts. Till August 2006, there have been 33 incidents of IED/mine explosions, in which 17 persons have been killed and 73 were injured. A bulk of these incidents have taken place in Chirachandpur district. The Mar Students Association, in fact, quotes much higher figures for the district, claiming that 81 persons have died in landmine blast and booby traps planted by militants at Tipamuk between September 2004 and January 2006. On August 15, 2006, a 57-year-old man, identified as Lao Risheng, was killed in a landmine explosion at Parbung. As we can see, UNLF is a threat to the Kukis, who are rightful citizens of India. Will the Union government initiate a peace talk to this barbaric group whose goals align with the Métis government to exterminate and eradicate law-abiding innocent Indians? Fellow Indians, security personnel, politicians, and the Union government alike must never forget that UNLF aims to establish an independent socialist Manipur. Soon after its formation, the UNLF leaders established a political relationship with the authority of the then East Pakistan and underwent military training in that country in 1969. They also supported the Pakistani army during the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. Later, the group also developed a relationship with China even while continuing its relations with Pakistan. Added to this, they joined forces with the Tatmadaw and fought against pro-democratic forces in Myanmar. Pradhan Mantri Modi boasts of India as the largest democracy. Rhetoric alone will not ensure survival of democracy in India and the world. India must step up its efforts in upholding democracy. A good place to start would be to foil and sabotage the plans of Biren and the UNLF right here on our soil. Kukis have fought against the British Empire just as the freedom fighters did. Kukis have fought alongside Netaji, proving their commitment to India. And when NS-79 sought to challenge the sovereignty of India by demanding greater Nagalim, innocent Kuki civilians lost their life in defending their own Kuki ancestral land, which effectively means defending the sovereignty of India. It is high time that the Union government realize and acknowledge that the Kukis are the true ally of India. Jai Hind. Why were we shunned? Kukis owe mob students on being debarred from exams. In 2022, when we appeared for the National Eligibility Come-Entrance Test, NET, it was a simpler time for Manipur. It was a time when peace and tranquil prevailed in the state, a time when there were no divisions among the people, and a time when no seeds of distrust were sown. Our paths crossed in 2022 as aspiring Kukis Omimar medical students, and it was through our consistent hard work that we were able to crack one of the toughest exams in the country. Each had their path set, some at the Regional Institute of Medical Sciences, RIMS, Lamfelpat, some at Jawaharlal Nehru Institute of Medical Sciences, NIMS, Porumput, and another fraction at Shija Academy of Health Sciences, SHS, Langal. All of these colleges are located in Impole, the capital city of Manipur. Up until 2022, except for in Impole East and West, There were no other medical colleges in all of Manipur. Then, in 2022, a turning point came when a new college, Churachandpur Medical College, or CMC, was established in Churachandpur district. This newfound college emerged as an unexpected hope for those in the tribal hill districts of Manipur aspiring to become medical professionals. Question mark on our academic aspirations. When ethnic clashes erupted in the state on May 3rd, we witnessed horrific scenes from our hostel rooms and on social media. Having heard that Kukizomimar students from other institutes were not spared, we still had some hope that we were safe. After all, we were medical students staying inside a hospital campus. But we soon learned that was not the case, and we had to flee for our lives. We initially took shelter at a military camp. After a few days, we learned that going back to Churachandpur would be near to impossible. With practically no options left, we had to ask help from our relatives or relatives of our friends staying outside the state to take us in. We were scattered in different parts of the country, staying with acquaintances, friends, or relatives who would take us in. Some students even had to resort to working as minimum wage workers, as money was hard to come by, and we had to repay the money for our flight tickets to whoever was kind enough to lend us the required money. Gradually, some of us fortunately also made it back home. Our academic aspirations, though, remained a big question mark. On May 29th, RIMS, Impul, issued a circular wherein the authorities outlined a hybrid approach to classes, resuming physically for those in Manipur and virtually for those outside the state. However, this presented a predicament especially for the medical students of Churachandpur and Kangpokpi. They were unable to access the internet due to the internet ban imposed in the state since the outbreak of the clashes. Then, on June 12th, the National Medical Commission (NMC) approved the Manipur government's request for classes for the displaced medical students of CMC to be conducted at NIMS. Unfortunately, no proposal was made for the displaced Kukizome medical students from institutes in Impul by the state. Welcomed with open arms by CMC students in July, a Supreme Court order even pressed for arrangements to be made for displaced Kukizo students to attend classes in other institutes. But no proper arrangements were made. Meanwhile, there were 6 non-displaced Kukizo students of CMC, and they were kind and graceful enough to welcome us to join their classes organized with the help of the deputy director in CMC and other displaced staff from Impul. A record of our attendance was maintained systematically by the teachers and the deputy director of CMC. We attended the same classes as the CMC students and shared whatever facilities they were utilizing. Tests were conducted regularly as well as internal assessments. The remaining staff from CMC, with the help of displaced staff, were kind enough to volunteer and train us. The new government medical college in Churachandpur, CMC, became a beacon of hope for those seeking to continue their medical education amidst adversity. Displaced students found solace in the warmth of non-displaced CMC friends, creating an unofficial but significant connection. While displaced medical students in Churachandpur had this option, those from other hill districts such as Kangpokpi had no way of continuing their medical education unless they made their way to Churachandpur through Nagaland and Mizoram. Some of them eventually took the long route, traveled for more than 48 hours, and moved to Churachandpur to be able to continue their education, though the arrangement has remained unofficial till now. However, some students from Kangpokpi district, due to financial constraints and security problems along the Kangpokpi-Churachandpur border, were not able to make their way to Churachandpur. It is also pertinent to note here CMC has infrastructure to conduct classes for first-year MBBS students only, since it was inaugurated only in 2022. There are no BDS facilities in CMC, and thus, the only classes possible for the dental students are the MBBS subject topics, which has similar topics with their syllabus such as anatomy and physiology. All other displaced medical students are still devoid of options to carry on their education. Prepared extra hard for exams after receiving assurance, life was tough as many students have had their homes vandalized and burnt to ashes. They were either living in relief camps or with relatives. But we all tried our best to stay focused on our studies. However, several displaced medical students and PG trainees were barred from taking their exams. The fight for our right to education intensified when the first-year MBBS and BDS university exams were approaching. On September 11th, the Manipur University MU, in a notification, announced that first-year exams will be conducted on November 21st. Fearing that displaced students would be barred from appearing for the exam, we approached Arun Kumar S., Deputy Commissioner, DC, of Churachandpur, who assured us that he would try his best to ensure that we could appear for our exams. Accordingly, we filled up the exam forms and paid our fees. Mind you, these are difficult times, and money is hard to come by. The examination fees varies from one college to another. While it is 4,700 rupees for NIMS, it is 5,700 rupees for RIMS, and 12,500 rupees for SHS. We still don't understand why were we debarred from exams. The NMC, upon receiving our request for examination, sent a letter addressed to MU's Dean of School of Medical Sciences. In the letter, dated November 13th, the panel clearly stated that the NMC has no objection if displaced students appear in the university examination from the parent college or from a different college. University may make a decision after due consultation with colleges and state authorities. However, on the November 18th, we were informed that admit cards and exam materials were sent only for the 6 non-displaced students, MBBS students of CMC. We, the displaced students, had been excluded despite the NMC's NOC. We still do not understand on what grounds MU exempted us from appearing for the exam. The criteria stated by MU was 75% attendance. Given the ground reality, the university should have made an exception with regard to our attendance. In addition to that, we have been attending the same classes with the CMC students and sharing their facilities on our own accord. Yet, we have been shunned by a university that should have prioritized our education. We have forwarded our appeals to NMC, Dental Council of India, Ministry of Home Affairs, Chief Secretary of Manipur, and the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and organized a silent protest to shed light on this disparity that we as Kukizomimar medical students are facing. Our cry for education echoes through our silent protest as we as displaced students continue to fight for rightful migration and education. In a profession meant to save lives, we find ourselves walking the streets demanding our right to an education rather than be in the classrooms we are entitled to. Aaron Lianchinat T is a first-year MBBS student at RIMS. Impul, Nimlungwan Vault, and Eli Chin Nikimar. First, your MBBS students at NIMS Impul.